record so that we could have this available to anyone who wants to watch it on YouTube. But it is my pleasure. Well, today, aside from the program, are there any other announcements that we're going to want to cover before we get into to the presentation? And I could already tell we're going to have some really good discussion. But are there any announcements that we want to get out of the way?
Let me just point out that in today's Courier, the letter from Steve Siddick and the Public Bank of Pomona Valley is in there, signed by, I haven't looked at it myself, but several people.
Cool. Yeah, I just received it and I haven't looked at it yet, but always a good source of information. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the program. It is my pleasure to welcome Victor Quiroz today. He's been a union member for more than 40 years, 30 years plus with the UAW, and 10 years with the Teamsters. He's also a registered Democrat, a proud registered Democrat, and elected as delegate to the 47th Assembly District. He's also been a delegate to several state and national Democratic conventions and was president of the UAW Local 230, for 5 consecutive terms. He's married to a beautiful wife and have 3 successful children. And I learned earlier that he's from my hood, so you know that automatically he's a good guy from the La Puente area. So with that, let's welcome Victor, and he's going to have a PowerPoint presentation, and look forward to the conversation thereafter. Welcome, Victor.
Oh, thank you so much, Sam. Really appreciate it. I got, a few weeks ago, I got an invitation, or at least a note from Natisha, about joining you and having the opportunity. And then I also saw a list. This group has a very impressive list of people that are actually coming in and keeping up with you, giving you reports. I see an economist. I see Andy, has been talking. My goodness, I'm extremely impressed, and I'm definitely honored to basically join you today, just to give you a little update and at least a taste of what my perspective as in the labor movement and with union is about, and how it is that we are actually continuing to try to basically keep, not just the Democratic Party, but actually communities aware of the common grounds and the common, interest that we actually share with our members and also members of the community. So Sam, thank you so much for jumping in earlier. I'm gonna now start my share the screen and give you a really brief presentation just to explain to you. You guys chose the presentation that you wanted me to do today, and that presentation is gonna be on legislation, human rights, and the United Auto Workers. So let me start really quick, just sharing that with you, and then we'll jump into it right off the bat. Okay, can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So my name is Victor Quiroz, and I am an international rep with United Auto Workers. I have 3 departments. I had 3 departments, which is the Community Action Program, the Civil and Human Rights, and I also have the Retirees Department. So those 3 departments were actually given to me on a request. The request I had was that, I wanted to basically do the Community Action Program, which is the legislative part of UAW, and combine it with the Civil and Human Rights and Retirees, because those seem to be the most active. So it was easy for me to basically come on and literally bring these 3 departments together and start the program, which is not just for members, but also for our communities. So talking about human rights, let me tell you that UAW was founded in 1935. And the foundation of the UAW has been pretty much not just with labor, but also civil and human rights. And what I wanted to share with you was something that I put together. And I found, the actual program for the August 28, 1963 Jobs and Freedom March. I mean, I think everybody remembers the I have a dream speech. Well, in this picture, what you see is Walter Reuther, who was one of my initial presidents, and taking part. The UAW took huge part in making sure that we were part and marching with Dr. King. In fact, UAW, my president, was one of the speakers at that rally. So, when it comes down to civil and human rights, we have always been there, and we want to continue to do the same thing. But at one given point, I want to just talk about this. Jobs, civil, human rights, somehow or another, throughout the years, from the civil rights movement in the 60s, and even prior to that, somehow there's been like wedges built between labor and civil and civil human rights. When we have always seen those the same, we in the UAW, we don't really see them a whole bunch, difference between them. We've always have seen them, but the actual march on that given day was for jobs and freedom. So I just wanted to basically share that part with you. So let me get on the next slide, the basic question that we want our members to basically see. We want our members to be aware and to be involved. So the basic question that we actually ask our members, and I share with my members, is, are you involved in politics? And are you aware that everything we do in politics actually affects us? And if you're not, why is it that you're not involved? So I show us, a simple draft, a simple picture, of a town, storefront. And, we asked our people, are you involved in politics? And a lot of them tell us, no, they're not, because they feel irrelevant. They feel that, why should we be involved in politics? And then we explain to them that, politics involves almost everything. And we actually tell them, if you have a cell phone, if you pay a bill, if you buy a present for your wife, if you have a mortgage, or if you drive to the stores, the signal light, how the regulations, the opening hours, the parking, including even that yellow marks or the red marks on the curves, how you can park, not park, those are affected by politics. So, at the local level, you are being affected and you are being involved in politics, whether you are aware of it or not. So we would recommend, and we actually encourage them to understand and know that politics is around them all the time. And that, sometimes for them to be able to basically take part in the decisions that are actually making a huge change.
Bye-bye.
I'm sorry? Oh, some of the decisions that are being made politically affect them directly. And in order for them to basically, balance those changes, they have to be involved. So that's one of the very first things that I do with the programs that we do with our membership. And, we do it, through conferences and through meetings that we have with our membership. So that's one of the very first things we want people to know, that they're involved in politics. And from politics, then we start talking to them about the three branches of government. Does government represent the political balance for them? And do they feel that, that the balance favors them directly and their families, our middle class and working people? That's how we create awareness about legislation. How about legislation, politics affect them? So, when it comes down to it, then we have a conversation about how it is that we endorse candidates. Now, I have to tell you, we represent an array of people. And I like to basically say that, not all of them are Democrats, but we actually do try to basically represent and make sure they understand us, that we reach the middle ground with them, and that we want to represent what affects them the most. In other words, what are their common grounds? What are their pocketbook issues? And so we invite them to basically screen candidates with us. We send out questionnaires to candidates, and what issues do we need to carry to that, to that candidate? How is it that we actually review them? Do we review their voting records if they're already incumbents? If not, what type of record they have, or how is it that they actually have pretty much interacted with the community, or even us as labor? So we have group discussions, and that's how we decide, how we are going to endorse or who we endorse. So on legislation, let me give you a little quick update of what labor's most important bills, recent bills on the 117th Congress that we have actually kept our eyes on. In January, before the inaugural, we drafted a letter of priorities, labor priorities with UAW, and we sent it to the Biden administration. And then we also copied all our labor friends and people that had been elected. we gave them a list of priorities, and we've been having meetings with them. And right now, these 3 bills are the ones that have been most important to us as far as labor is concerned. One of them has been the American Rescue Plan that everybody knows has seen just passed. The other one has been, for the People's Act. I'm sure that, most of you are familiar with it. And that's actually protecting, voting and civil rights. And right now, there's a huge debate on those issues. I mean, presently, we know those are the debates. But one, if not the most important, bill for us was H42, which is the PRO Act, which is protecting the right to organize workers. We took part and also in supporting the drive that the Alabama workers have had with Amazon. So it's been a busy schedule, as always should be with labor. But I'll give you a quick report as we go on. Let me talk to you really quick about what the American Rescue Plan is, and you probably have seen it. Maybe some of you have seen this graph, but within it, I wanted to basically just talk about, for example, Andy, you were talking about younger people. UAW, we have diversified. We represent approximately, 19,000 members in the UC system, throughout the state. And for them, to talk about 178 billion, that it was part of the American Rescue Plan, that includes some of those, issues in regards to tuitions, tuition assistance, and also up to $10,000 in forgiveness, or, with those loans. I mean, those young people consider that to be one of the top priorities. So, this is what we actually have looked at. This is what we actually have been discussing with our membership of how the American Rescue Plan, was passed and how we were able to basically get that passed. We know how it passed through reconciliation, but this is what we have now. And it's a popular plan, by the way. You've seen it. Let me just tell you, and we found out, we pulled some of these numbers, that HR 1319 passed, right? But if you look at actual, support, even up to 63% of lower income Republicans support it. So when it comes down to people that, when they look at their economics, when they look at their pocketbooks, when they look at what benefits they're actually are going to get from them, 63% of the lower income Republicans actually, think it's a good idea. So, and that's, when you see what the support for the Democratic is, of course, it's a lot higher. So that's where we know, we have something. So, so the protecting the right to organize, did pass the House, and 5 Republican Congress members actually voted for it. We only had 1 Democrat that actually voted not for it. Mr. Cuellar is the only one that actually didn't vote for it. But that's it. And but the union's position is that passing the protecting right, or the PRO Act, will restore, or would definitely protect and make companies accountable for some of the violations they are actually now using to prevent, quite frankly, employees for choosing freely whether to join a union or not, whether to be part of a process of collective bargaining or not, giving them pretty much a free and ample choice. So this is one of the reasons why protecting the right to organize is very important to the PRO Act, with the PRO Act. So one of the things that we have seen and that we basically find, this is the time for us to do it. Unfortunately, today we've been getting news, and you probably have heard the news, that the drive in Alabama on the results so far doesn't seem that it's going to be successful. But we understand and know that if given the chance, Americans' approval for unions is actually going up a little bit. I know that that unions, as far as membership is concerned, has declined greatly. But given the choice, we still believe that employees, workers, will still basically opt for that choice. So, this is some of the talking points that we have actually used in regards to, why workers need the PRO Act, because the multiple hurdles that we actually face. And quite frankly, even if we win the vote to go union, as we have experienced, we might have, a group of employees that actually has chosen to join the union. They have voted union, but it has taken us sometimes even years to get an initial contract or an initial agreement with that company or that employer, even after we have chosen to do that. So that's one of the reasons why we need to basically adjust and make sure that some of those rules and some of those disadvantages that employers use against employees could actually be transformed, modified, and completely, literally reviewed. So that is one of the reasons why we actually think so. These are some of our talking points. So this is something that we did recently in downtown Los Angeles, when we actually went out with the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor and other labor affiliates in support of the Amazon workers in Alabama. So right now, when we talk about the other bills that we're keeping our eye on are the voting rights, the HR1 for the People's Act. I am sure that you guys are pretty much aware of it, that we have over 43 states. And the last count we've been basically keeping a count on is that now we have about 47 states with, over 400 suppression bills. And in Georgia and Arizona have at least 22 of those bills that are really harshly restricting or making it harder for people to actually have access and be able to basically vote from one way or the other. So that is what we consider not just the issue of voting rights, but human and civil rights. So this is one of the things that that we are actually focusing ourselves on, and we wanted to make sure that right now within our rank and file, we want people to be aware of that, and we are encouraging them to basically understand and know that not just for elections, but actually being part of a larger scope, that we want them to basically really, quite frankly, understand if making it harder for you to vote, am I actually helping you, or am I making it literally harder for you to basically advance your best interests? So, the UAW has always been a progressive movement. And we wanted to basically make sure that, we actually stand up or basically come in defense and try to basically just raise the flags whenever something actually like this is actually happening. So, some of those legislatures proposed measures already include, but already passed, as you could basically see in Georgia and even Iowa, some of these really harsh measures already passed, like reducing voting hours right here in Iowa already passed. But, in this one, there were some very harsh proposals that they actually had, but they actually reversed in Georgia, like voting on Sundays when they had when they have those two polls, they had to retract that one. And the present bill that they actually did pass doesn't have that anymore, but it still has plenty of restrictions. So, those are some of the negative aspects that we have in regards to restrictions of votes. So the HR1 that actually did pass the House, does counter a lot of what the states are actually doing to suppress the voting rights of its citizens. But we don't know how it's going to basically go in the Senate. We understand and know that it's going to be a tough fight because after all, the Senate is not really 50-50. We have 48 Democrats, 2 independents, and 50 Republicans. And everyone has basically been discussing about how is it that you modify, reform, or do something for the filibuster. But even with that, it will be something that will be extremely harsh. So the tough for the Democratic Party, for the Biden administration and a progressive movement, it's not easy. When everybody was focusing, of course, Georgia to basically win those 2 Senate seats, it still is not possible for us to basically move and get something done unless it's done through the reconciliation process, right? But one of the things that HR1 has, and that most people are not even paying attention to, or sometimes even doesn't make the highlights, is that it creates oversights on lobbyists and foreign agents. It will require presidential candidates to disclose their tax returns. And in addition to that, it creates, some requirements for, contributions of dark money, wealthy individual contributions to be made public. So those are issues that, we have been discussing over the years in regards to, remember, campaign reform. We've talked about those issues for years and years and years. So HR1 contains some of those, but it seems like for the most part, the highlights that most of this bill gets are the highlights that everybody shares in regards to just booth, having access, IDs and so on and so forth. This one goes further than that, and it passed the House already. So, one of the strongest priorities that we have actually had, to protect democracy with the UAW, is the support of civil and human rights, and one of them was voting. This is an old picture. I don't know when it was taken. I had it in one of my archives, and I pulled it. And this had to have been in the 60s, where this is one of the voting rights marches that we actually did have in regards to organizing drives and voting drives that we actually hold still today. We have within the UAW a phrase that is very familiar to all our members as well. This is a phrase that is actually from Walter Reuther in the convention in 1970 that directly links the actions of politics and union workers, politics and every worker, and this is what the quote was. There is a direct relationship between the ballot box and the bread box, and what the union fights for and wins at the bargaining table can be taken away in the legislative halls. And that's true. That is one of the things that we actually try to let our members know, that we might have something today, and a president or Congress could basically make those changes, as you're pretty aware of. This is one of the pictures that we have from UAW registration drive, way in which we actually promoted, and you could basically see that even we were promoting it for people to register. We were actually doing, if you guess the correct number of people that actually were registering, people will get a prize. And up to today, we still do some of those things in our shops, whether it be at the University of California, the University of California, or anywhere where our students or our members actually work at.
Yeah, there is nothing else.
Oh, I thought somebody had a question. I'm sorry. So let me move on. So, in essence, and talking to when I heard Andy talk about the young members that you were actually addressing, these are part of our group. Young members that actually did join. We have local 5810, we have local 2865, we have local 4123, and then also we have a local out of state in the University of Washington 4121. These are young members, and yes, you're absolutely right. When you talked about the issues that we basically have to face, not all of them would basically, if we endorse a candidate, not all of them might basically be happy with the endorsement process, but there is a middle ground that we have to reach. And I was around when this student unions, with this student group actually wanted to join, and they really petitioned to basically join the UAW. We felt honored. I felt honored that this young crowd of people was actually coming to the UAW and asking to basically join us. And there was some opposition, maybe. There was some, I guess, skepticism, of, how the young people were going to basically come in. But look, we were all at one given point, we had gone through that. I was brought in by a very progressive, wing of the UAW, 30 plus years ago, and even before that. And they brought me under their wing. They taught me. They never made me feel that, I was young and that I was ignorant and I didn't do anything. What they did for me is what I'm trying to basically continue today. So with these people coming into the wings, I do everything I can to basically make them feel welcome and actually participate, because they are my future. They're, quite frankly, we are moving, and they're the future of the UAW. And I could tell you that a lot of these kids already are part of our executive board. So, in closing, I'm going to close really quick. I think it's time to play offense as Democrats. Public show support for the proposals that we actually do have, not just from the Democrats, but also from working people and labor. So, and one of the things that we actually have to see is, I want you to, if you can, I want you to basically read what the response was from President Biden on his very first press conference on quite frankly, was a GOP reporter, someone from Fox News that asked him. So, the question was, how do you feel about the opposition that you got from the Republicans regarding the American Rescue Plan? And his response was just simple. Did you hear them complain when they passed the close to the 2 trillion Trump tax in 2017? We were there. 83% going to the top 1%. Did you hear him talk about that? He asked them. When the federal budget is saving people's lives, they don't think it's such a good idea, and so on and so forth. Biden continued, and he told them, when the federal budget is feathering the nest of the wealthiest Americans, 90 of the Fortune 500 companies making billions of dollars and not paying a cent in taxes, but if you are a husband or a wife, a school teacher, a cop, and you're paying a higher tax rate than the average person, making billions, there's something wrong. So there's a message in there. There really is truly a message that I believe is going to have to resonate with those people that the Trump, sound bites actually captured. At this given point, I believe that it's time. We have a chance to basically play offense, and we have to be strategic about it, and we have to recognize it. So, to me, when I heard the response that he gave this reporter, it made a huge difference for anyone out there that's actually listening, and anyone out there that's actually been involved in politics and the legislative process. So in closing, I have to basically just let you know that what I believe is that one of the most effective and peaceful manners which we can defend and fight for democracy and civil rights peacefully is to be politically active, like you guys are. You guys have probably been politically active all your lives, and you guys are continuing, but in essence, you're also passing the message on to other people, speaking up, talking about it, being inclusive, bringing people in. So I truly do believe that as Democrats, it's time for us to basically play offense. We don't have to basically, go out of our ways to be, politically correct or incorrect, but we have to be, continue to be inclusive, to expand our majority, and also find the common support that and good the most interest most people actually have in common. So you guys are the choir, I'm sure, and the only thing I look for is that with your help and the opportunities that you are continuing to give people like me, that we definitely could make such things happen. Now, this is the last slide. This is one of the things that I do use. I try to basically look for quotes from high regarded individuals in the labor movement, or even with unions, or from the Democratic Party that talk about our movement, our labor movement. And this is one of the quotes that I found from President Kennedy that does talk about our unions, that we're not just narrowly minded, that we just don't basically look out for our membership, that we actually have an interest of our community, because we live in a community. I don't live in the shop 24 hours a day. I come home just like every member comes home, just like you go home. So the common interest that we actually share, as labor, as union members, are no different than the families and my neighbors actually do share. And we have those things in common. And President, Kennedy brought those issues, and he had a statement to basically say. So I wanted to, again, thank you, Sam, and thank you all of you for giving me the chance. It's an honor to basically be with you today. I really appreciate having the chance to basically address you and just give you a little quick highlight of where the UAW is today, and where literally I am. This is my backyard. This area, I've been now for the last 30 plus years. I consider this, on any legislative process or anything that's happening in politics throughout the state and at the national level, one of the priorities that I continue to focus in and try to basically raise flags or be involved in. So Sam, thank you so much for for allowing me to basically join you today. And if anyone has any questions, please.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's give Victor a nice hand, and great presentation on the not just a historic activism, but also a pathway for the future too. I did forget to mention at the very beginning that Chris sends his apologies. He's camping right now, and he was hoping that he would still be able to do the intro. So his loss was my gain, because it was my pleasure to get to know Victor a little bit more. So with that, let's open it up. It's a small enough group where we can even have discussion as we were right before the meeting got started. So I see Michael's hand first. So Mike.
Yeah, thank you so much, Victor. I really appreciate your presentation. And I had a question regarding the vote, the Amazon vote in Alabama. I see that the numbers, the numbers for and against were less than half of the voters that could have turned in ballots. Is that because they haven't counted them all, or because that more than 3,000 eligible voters didn't cast a ballot?
Yeah, the total amount of people that actually do work for Amazon in that area in Bessemer are almost 6,000 of them. And Amazon did almost the impossible, to basically try to prevent. Mind you, that this drive has been, it started literally a long time ago. But those votes, they actually, the vote actually concluded on the 29th, March 29th. And Amazon has been challenging, a lot of the ballots, a lot of the, how they were casted. At one given point, Alabama was asking the NLRB to hold that voting drive in that particular warehouse. They wanted that ballot box to basically be visible. And of course, we knew what that was. We knew it was for intimidation purposes. We do know that they actually used almost everything at the disposal that the companies actually do have today, and they violate with minimal basically repercussions. So yes, Michael, the votes are continuing to be counted because Amazon has continued to basically challenge validity of some of those votes. And by the way, the report that we actually have seen just in the last few hours is that even though the National Labor Relations Board did not agree for them to basically have a mailbox for Amazon specifically to basically capture the votes as they were coming, it was denied by the National Labor Relations Board, but they still went, even after they were denied, they went to the U.S. Postal Service and requested a mailbox that they actually did use internally to capture some of those votes. So those might be some of the issues that we actually do use to basically appeal even the results of those voting, drives. So at this given point, yes, it seems like it's going to be a negative. It's not going to be favorable for the retail and wholesale union, but the challenges are going to continue. So I'm hoping that gives you at least an idea of where they are, Michael.
So, okay, well, so that there are some votes to be counted, or?
Yes, but we don't believe that they're going to be sufficient to basically overturn, the no's versus the yeas.
Okay, thank you.
Merrill has the next question.
Yes, I've got lots of questions, but I'll settle for this one first. The UAW has historically and at present, given your person, very strongly inclined toward the Democrats and progressive ideals. What about the membership? How many of the members of the UAW vote Republican and or how many vote Republican?
Yeah, this is what we have seen. Early 2015 and into late 2015, we took a straw poll. And what we wanted to basically find out where we were. We take straw polls all the time, surveys. Late in 2015, the straw polls for us told us that we had about 24% of members that would vote Republican. How we found that out is because if you voted for president today, who would you vote for? And we had the candidates, which included Bernie Sanders, which included Hillary Clinton, which included others as well. And the names that were coming back as Republicans were Marco Rubio, and then we saw Trump's name. And that's how we knew that, we do. Now, mind you, we have always known, as any association, that we have at least a percentage of members that either oppose or have contradictory views or opinions. And that is fine. For us, it makes us more aware, it keeps us on our toes. But our main interest for us is continue to basically make sure that their economic stability, that their economic benefits and interest continues to be represented. So we were aware of that because if we have, and it has, by the way, it has increased to almost 28%, since then. But when it comes to it, we feel in a democratic union, when the votes are taken, that the vast majority would basically vote to move in certain direction. And that minority, whomever they might be, they abide by that vote. And that's how we have basically continued. We basically take the common grounds, the common interests that people do have in our membership. And that's where we are. I'm hoping I wasn't just too long-winded, Meryl, but that's the answer to that one.
That's what I wanted to know.
Thank you.
Yeah, we just pop up or?
And Mel put up the vote tally, by the way, in the chat room, if anyone could
Yes.
take a look at that.
Yeah, it's pretty daunting, 1,700 to 700. Yeah, but I think Meryl's point is really important. That still represents less than half of the 6,000 voters as potential voters. And the question is, how much of that was intimidation? How much of that is real? I mean, isn't Alabama a right to vote, a right to work state, actually?
Yes, it is. Alabama's a right to vote. But yes, Alabama's a right to vote state, like many states that we actually have contracts and collective bargaining agreements. And there is, a distinction that I didn't get to share with you. Sorry about the presentation. I gave you pretty much a synopsis of what 1 day or 2 days of a presentation would be, and I gave it to you in 15, 20 minutes. But we tried to basically go more into details about how, and the difference is this, that if you are you have a collective bargaining agreement, not only do your health and safety, personal health and safety at the work site is actually improved, by a large, but also your economic, gains, by anywhere between 12% to even up to 15%, if you are actually in a collective bargaining or a union contract. So, if people were free to choose that, we believe that it will be pretty much almost like an obvious, without interference from the employers. Yes, it was intimidation. Andy, we knew that those members were actually being called even individually and by the company and through break rooms, lunch rooms, what we call captive audiences. And they were actually being told that, this is the right to work state, that, you actually are going to basically be joining a union, paying union dues, and you might not necessarily even agree with that. And that was completely, quite frankly, that was false statement, because like you said, Andy, in the state of Alabama, just because they have a union didn't mean that they will have to pay union dues. Even if the union was there, they did not have to pay union dues. They will still have to, they will be represented on the economic gains that place would have for all those employees.
Well, it's not just the act of suppression occurred long before. I mean, locating the plant in a rural Alabama area means that there's going to be lots of people there who are being paid more than the standard wage around, and they're not dissatisfied generally. I mean, that was the clever move on the part of Amazon in the first place.
And they voluntarily moved to $15 an hour as their minimum wage.
Yeah,
Ricky had a comment too.
Well, I'm thinking, you talk about the right to work state and so on. It kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth that the union is saying, vote for the union, but you don't actually have to join it, which is what it seems to amount to.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Ricky.
And incidentally, I think part of the pitch is, the $500 union dues. Well, it's sort of morphed in their propaganda from $500 a year, which comes to 25 cents an hour, to $500 a month, which is, I think, would not be so easy for any of us you know, to sustain. But what I am concerned about is that we shouldn't have to, when we're agitating, when we're supporting a union, to have it be, this is a right to work state, so you don't really have to join the union. I mean, this is why it's a right to work state, isn't it, too? So
Yeah.
that even if a union passes, you can encourage freeloaders.
Ricky, you know, you're talking, you know, to someone who, you know, we did not use the issue of, you know, you don't have to pay. We didn't have to, and that's of course one of the things we had to watch that only because we know that's the right. Those are the right to state laws and federal laws that actually sometimes apply. But no, our main focus was on, you know, what benefits, you know, those employees would have, what their families would have, and what the community would have. But you know, the money that was actually spent, you know, if you're talking about the richest, the richest company right now in the world opposing this drive, they used, including in the restaurant,
I know.
you know, including the restaurants, but they would basically have flyers and they would have literally clipboards, you know, literally intimidating and encouraging to vote no, because what they were saying is, we're already doing this for you. You don't have to basically talk to your union rep. You could talk directly to us. But one thing we also know is that you know, we've heard about employment turnover rate. The turnover rate in most Amazon centers reaches the high 90s. You know, and that's high because it's quite frankly, we've heard of repetitive movements. We've heard of, you know, carpal tunnel issues. We've heard of things not being safe. And specifically during this pandemic, the protections that, you know, that even some of the essential people have, you know, we knew that restaurants had been closed, so people weren't being exposed. But Amazon, because of the demand they had, because of the crisis, they were literally hiring people, and turnover ratios. And quite frankly, when it came down to, they weren't necessarily reporting all the, you know, infections issues and how they were not doing enough sometimes to protect those employees. So when it comes down to protections and benefits, those are some of the things that we actually focused on. And still, you know, with the company's intimidation tactics, you know, it has not been successful. That is one of the reasons why we continue to basically contact all our legislators about the PRO Act, to basically make sure that, you know, employees have a you know, an equal playing field when it comes to choosing whether to join a union or basically have you know, a voice at their work.
Victor, could you just comment very briefly on which of the tactics, because I'm not quite clear, which of the tactics that Amazon presumably used in this election campaign would be prohibited under PRO? You know, what would be the big impact?
The biggest impact would be for them to basically stop using the, you know, what you call the captive audience and the intimidation issues. You know, when there are laws that they're actually violating, when there are rules by the National Labor Relations Board that they actually, you know, violate, that there is an economic price to pay and some damages that they actually have. The only thing we know, we had an issue in the Fremont plant in Tesla. Health and, you know, of course it was an organizing drive. So when they fired some of those people that wanted to basically, that were pro-union and wanted to basically form a union, they fired them. So those are the two big issues. The anti-union, you know, messages and captive audiences they use to intimidate, and the actual retaliation that they have against employees that want to basically encourage other people to basically join the union. Those are the two main issues that we want to basically make sure that are addressed under the PRO Act.
Are the economic penalties sufficient to deter this from a company?
None. Right now, the companies really are, you know, they don't have to worry about it. They haven't had to worry about it, period. So they continue to do it. They have continued. So that's a huge advantage, of course.
Any other questions for Victor?
Let me ask one thing. Do you have any idea when Schumer's going to bring HR 42 up before the Senate?
I think they're being tactful right now. And we leave, like I told you earlier, I think it's going to be a really tough fight. Right now, they want to basically get, the infrastructure plan done, by August. We don't think that they'll be able to, and if they do, we probably won't see it before August.
Yeah, from what I'm understanding is they now can do reconciliation as often as they need to. They're not limited to one or two. So, but the problem is going to be that bills like the labor bill and the HR1 bill and the other voting rights bill are going to be really tough to include under reconciliation.
Yeah,
And
they'll
so
be, you're right, Andy.
That's
Yeah, the reconciliation bills will not be able to basically include the PRO Act, just like we weren't able to basically include the
so the
$15
question
minimum
is,
wage.
yeah, so there's a tactical question of if you're gonna take on the filibuster, and because of Manchin in particular, not abolish it, but try to go to the talking filibuster, which bill is the best one to start that fight on? And my guess is HR1 is the one they're going to choose as the first one to try to test that ground. And so my fear is that the labor bill is going to be put off until later, until after the voting rights bill.
Oh, we believe that as well, Andy. And we're not, and of course we understand that. We have to, we do understand the strategic issues, with when it comes to the voting bill being put forward or as a test, to the reforming of the filibuster, or basically how does the GOP or Republican, Senate, how do they view themselves? We know that a lot of them are pretty much just following, a tune or a drum from someone else. But this one, I believe this is a better test than the labor bill. We understand that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, please join me in giving Victor another applause here for his information. And Victor was telling me earlier that he's a member of several of the local clubs. So hopefully we could entice him and at least start participating in some of the programs that we have going on here with this club as well. So appreciate your time today, Victor. And
really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm going to share. I'm going to drop in the chat box. Drop my email address. Yeah, in case anyone has any questions, or if you want to basically continue to stay in touch, on any updates in regards to what labor movement is doing. We want to basically be partners, and I have to tell you this. When I first became a member of the UAW, I was brought in by people that definitely had a lot more experience than I did, and quite frankly, they still have a lot more experience than I have. But they taught me one thing. They taught me that they taught me to listen, and you have to listen not just to yourself, but you have to listen to almost everything around you, and that is something I still continue to use. And by just listening to how the conversations are held between this group. And my first question was in the liberal, what is it called? The liberal drinking or the liberal, wine tasting, and I'm saying, those were some good conversations. And so listening it's always been something that actually, I've held close. You definitely could do a lot more learning when you listen to both, with 2 ears rather than just speaking with just one mouth. So, I truly do thank you for giving me the time, Sam, and
absolutely.
And hopefully I could still basically hear from some of you. If you have any questions, please drop me a line. It's always an honor, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for spending your lunch hour with us. And we'll see you guys soon at our general meeting, which is the 26th. So with that, have a happy weekend coming up, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Best regards.